But on a bad day, Paul Walker, the actor who played Ryan O'Connor in Fast and Furious, decided to get into a Porsche Carrera GT, and the result was devastating. The car was completely pulverized and burned. It was news that shocked the entire world, because in addition to leaving thousands of fans heartbroken, it left a daughter without a father. Years later, she got married, and since there was no father to walk her down the aisle, a good friend decided to do it in Paul's name. And that friend was Vin Diesel. In the movie, it was obvious there was chemistry between the two of them, but in real life, things were even more impressive. To understand the relationship between them, the case of his daughter, and everything Paul went through, it's important to know about his childhood. A life that began in September 1973 in Glendale, California. Paul is the oldest of 5 siblings and grew up surrounded by the warmth of a large family. His mother, Cheryl, had been a professional model before giving it all up to dedicate herself completely to taking care of the home. His father, Paul William Walker III, worked as a sewer contractor, although he had also been an amateur boxer and managed to become a 2-time Golden Gloves champion. Usually, in biographical documentaries, we only include the closest family members to provide context for the story, but in this case, we're making an exception because, according to information available online, Paul's paternal grandfather also holds an important place. He was known as Irish Billy Walker and had a career in boxing. Apparently, he survived the attack on Pearl Harbor and later worked as a test driver for Ford during the 1960s. All of this makes us think that maybe these factors influenced his tastes, especially when it comes to little Paul's love for cars. From a very young age, something that would eventually become his greatest passion. Keep that in mind because it will be important later on. Going back to his family life, Paul grew up in a somewhat conservative environment. His family was Mormon and very attached to traditional values. Together with his siblings, he spent his childhood in the Sunland neighborhood of Los Angeles and attended the Village Christian School, a private school that reinforced the religious principles he received at home. His mother, although she devoted herself entirely to raising her children, never completely let go of her love for show business. And for some reason that isn't entirely clear, she decided to introduce Paul to that world. Apparently, she saw some potential in him, so she started taking him to auditions for commercials and small roles on television. See? From that moment on, his face started to become familiar on the small screen. He appears in commercials for brands like Showbiz Pizza and S'mores Crunch cereal. He also takes part in several TV series, including 3 episodes of the fantasy drama Highway to Heaven. With all these small but important jobs, the boy lands his first movie role at just 10 years old. The film he acts in is Monster in the Closet, an absurd horror comedy where his ease in front of the camera is already apparent. The story takes place in a small town in California where a series of murders sparks panic. Panic ensues. The victims are found dead inside their own closets, and the attacker leaves no trace. A journalist, looking for his big break, travels to the town to investigate. And soon he discovers that there is something much stranger behind it all. With the help of a local teacher and her son, he delves into the case as more victims continue to appear. At one of the crime scenes, they find a giant claw that seems to belong to an unknown creature hiding in the closets. And it is immune, even to bullets. The army intervenes, but the monster seems to be invulnerable. A small group tries to understand it and communicate with it, but the attempt ends with the death of one of the scientists. After several failures, the city is evacuated and the army withdraws. But the plot twist comes when the protagonists realize that the real problem is the closets. So they broadcast a message on television asking everyone to destroy all the closets, leaving the creature with nowhere to hide. As a result, it loses energy and dies. The movie doesn't receive good reviews and goes almost unnoticed at the box office. This is quite common in low-budget productions, but it represents an important step for Paul. Well, even though the project isn't very successful, Paul gives it his all and discovers how much he enjoys this world. Over the following years, he continues to work steadily. He appears in more commercials, tries out different genres, and takes on minor roles in television shows. When he's about 13 years old, he lands his first leading role in a TV comedy called Trump. The series follows the life of a divorced woman in her 30s, played by Diana Canova, who starts working at an independent record label focused on new wave music. There, she becomes romantically involved with her boss while trying to balance her new work life with motherhood. Paul plays Jeremy the son, and his performance makes him increasingly visible in the entertainment scene. At this age, Paul is already starting to gain ground in the acting world, but at the same time he has to deal with high school and everything that comes with being a teenager. So for a while, he stops taking roles to focus his energy on his studies. And around this time, it's said that he starts a relationship with his first girlfriend, Rebecca, a girl very close to his family whom he has known since they were children. She is important in his story because as they grow up, they will have a daughter together. After graduating, Paul attends several community colleges in Southern California, with the idea of specializing in biology, marine biology, one of his great passions. And that's something not many people know about him. He completes his degree and after several years of study, feels it's time to try acting again. With his degree in hand and more motivated than ever, he returns to the artistic path. In this return to the acting ring, he meets Matt Louver, who becomes his agent and starts opening doors for him. But time has passed and Paul is no longer the adorable kid from commercials or the teenager from family comedies. Now he's an adult, and that allows him to start building a more versatile profile. More mature, willing to explore different paths to find his place in the industry. During this stage, he appears in several television shows with small but steady roles. He takes part in The Boys Are Back, in the youth drama CBS School Break Special, and also in the long-running soap opera The Young and the Restless, where he continues to hone his on-camera presence. These jobs don't make him famous overnight, but they restore his balance, discipline, and the connection with the industry that he had since he was young. One of his most unique projects during this stage is Tammy and the T-Rex, a science fiction comedy that, over time, gains a certain cult status because of how strange it is. It's kind of weird, but let me tell you a bit about it. In that movie, Paul plays Michael, a high school student who is murdered and whose brain ends up in the body of an animatronic Tyrannosaurus, all because of a mad scientist. After this, the dinosaur escapes, seeks revenge against those who hurt him, and tries to find Michael again, to reunite with his girlfriend Tammy, played by a young woman named Denise Richards. The movie doesn't receive praise or attention when it premieres. However, over the years, it becomes an icon of 90s kitsch cinema. These productions don't make him a star overnight. In a way, it's like starting from scratch in an industry that had already seen him come and go as a kid. Even so, taking those roles gives him a new opportunity, and that is to participate in two productions that will be extremely important in his career. And they catapult him to stardom. Meet the Deedles and Pleasantville. It's about two teenagers who are magically transported into an old black and white television series that depicts a perfect and orderly town. There, they must take on the roles of two characters within that reality, where everything is predictable, innocent, and completely controlled. But as they begin to introduce new ideas, emotions, knowledge, art, and desire, the world of that series starts to transform. Black and white gives way to color. Books, fire, and even rain appear. Everything that didn't exist before begins to take shape. This awakening creates tension. Those who remain attached to the original order begin to persecute those who change. Prohibitions, censorship, and fear of free thought appear. However, little by little, the city inevitably begins to transform, becoming a living community full of nuances and contradictions. Although Paul is not the protagonist, his character has important moments, especially in scenes with Reese Witherspoon. And for the first time, Polk works under the direction of a top-level filmmaker. This shoot also represents a technical milestone, as Pleasantville is the first film to use advanced digital technology to manipulate and edit colors on a large scale. For the film, more than 160,000 frames were scanned to create the visual effect in which black and white coexists with color. Although the film does not manage to recoup its high budget at the box office, earning just under $50 million compared to the $60 million it cost, it becomes a critical success. It receives praise for its originality, its visual aesthetic, and its performances, including Paul's. For the first time, he is recognized for his acting ability beyond his physical appearance. Another important role Paul takes on is in a story where two teenage brothers used to a comfortable life without responsibilities are sent by their father to a strict training camp in a national park as punishment for their lack of discipline. However, upon arrival, a series of misunderstandings and accidents leads people to mistake them for two expert naturalists who are about to join the camp. That environment is completely different from anything they have ever known. After all, their old life was full of surfing and comfort. In this new place, they accidentally discover that a former park ranger is carrying out a plan to divert the park's geothermal energy and build his own resort complex. And so, what begins as a story of carefree imposters turns into a mission to save an ecosystem and the park's reputation. With the help of a local animal and using everything they've learned, even if in their own way, they manage to foil the plan, restore the natural balance, and earn the respect of those who once looked down on them. This really is Paul's first leading role in a major production. That means exposure, a large-scale shoot, and his first experience on a big red carpet. Pleasantville gives him credibility, Meet the Deedles gives him visibility, and together these two films push his career to a new level. To be a serious actor who can do comedy, drama, and adapt to complex stories. However, just when it seems like everything is starting to fall into place professionally, news arrives that completely changes his life. Rebecca, his girlfriend, is pregnant. The news comes as a surprise. Just when everything is starting to gain momentum, when projects are growing and his name is beginning to be heard more strongly in the industry, fatherhood comes to him at around 25 years old. Between castings, meetings, and shoots with increasingly packed schedules and commitments that take him from one place to another, playing someone else for months, Paul tries to handle this new personal moment as best as he can. In November 1998, Meadow Rainwalker is born. And for a while, Paul seems to find a certain balance. He works, travels, and whenever he can, he comes home to see her. But as his recognition grows, so does his exposure, and privacy starts to become a problem. Rebecca, the baby's mother, decides to move to Hawaii, perhaps seeking a quieter, more stable environment far from the noise, which adds yet another challenge for Paul to face. Now his career is no longer just a dream, it also has to become the means to support his daughter. And so, between trips, film shoots, and absences, he does what he can in an attempt to be everywhere, even though it's not always possible. The circumstances wear them out, and eventually the couple decides that it's best to separate. As for the little girl, they both agree to share custody. Paul remains present in Meadow's life as much as he can. He makes sure to support her both financially and emotionally in everything she needs. And while his personal and family life is complicated, professionally, Paul continues to achieve success. He receives an offer for a movie where speed, gunfire, and adrenaline are the main focus. But above all, this movie makes it clear that there is something even more important. Health, my family. Paul accepts, but while the details of the project are being finalized, like the cast, the script, and the production, he keeps working on other things. He appears in Varsity Blues playing the star quarterback of a football team. He also appears in She's All That, where he plays the typical friend of the leading man in a teen comedy. The latter, despite receiving mixed reviews, becomes a box office phenomenon, grossing over $100 million worldwide. And over time, it turns into a 1990s classic. All of this keeps raising his profile more and more. He's climbing higher and higher on a ladder that's about to take him straight to the top thanks to a car movie you probably already know. However, if you look closely, up until now, the characters he has played have mostly belonged to romantic comedies, the most commercial genre of that time. And to avoid being typecast, Paul needs a role that will break him out of that mold. And that's when it appears. The Skulls, a story that revolves around a secret university society inspired by the myths surrounding real elite groups. In this hidden world, a student is recruited believing that joining this organization will lead him straight to success. But he soon discovers that all that glitters comes at a price, and that belonging to this circle means giving up much more than he ever imagined. One of the central characters is the son of a powerful senator, raised under the constant pressure of family expectations. From the outside, he seems to have it all: power, influence, and prestige. But inside, he lives in his father's shadow, trapped by the need to prove he is worthy of taking his place. The story thus becomes an exploration of the cost of belonging to a structure where there is no room for weakness or freedom. The film does not receive the best critical reception. It is accused of being exaggerated and even absurd at times. Nevertheless, it turns out to be a commercial success. It grosses more than double its budget at the box office. And more importantly, it allows Paul to prove that he can go far beyond the stereotype of the handsome guy. After this premiere, Paul begins filming the movie that will change his life forever, a role that seems tailor-made for Paul. And this is his role in a movie called Fast and Furious. As I mentioned before, since he was a child, Paul felt a strong connection with cars. That's why perhaps when he read the script, he didn't hesitate to accept. This time, he's offered the role of Brian O'Connor, a young undercover FBI agent who infiltrates illegal street races to catch a gang of thieves, led by Dominic Toretto, played by Vin Diesel. From the very first day of filming, Paul gave himself completely to the role. In many scenes, he improvised technical details or suggested real mechanical modifications. It wasn't unusual to see him excitedly talking with the stunt coordinators or staying after shooting just to get a closer look at the cars. The filming was demanding, intense, but also emotional. He forges a genuine relationship with the rest of the cast, especially with Vin Diesel, with whom he develops a friendship that goes beyond the set. Both share a love for social causes, a desire to protect their loved ones, and a way of living life to the fullest. And well, maybe if you've seen the latest Fast and Furious movies, you might think that the saga, it's all about missiles, nuclear threats, robots, explosions, cargo planes, and impossible jumps. But it wasn't always like that, broadly speaking. The first movie is about a young man who goes undercover in the world of street racing to investigate a series of truck robberies. It's a world where illegal street races take place. There are enemies, allies, and amid all the illegality, glimpses of light like the loyalty between the characters. Paul's mission is to try to get close to the group that might be behind the crimes. Little by little, he earns their trust and becomes one of them. But the deeper he gets, the blurrier the lines become between his mission and what he starts to feel for the people around him. The investigation forces him to lie and to hide who he really is. But it also brings him closer to people who share the same passion, with whom he ends up forming strong bonds. But when everything blows up and the truth comes to light, Paul decides to do what his heart believes is right. And he gives Toretto the keys to his own car so he can escape. And the thing is, Paul had been taking on increasingly complex roles, leaving behind his heartthrob phase as a teenager. With Fast and Furious, he enters a new phase of his career. In fact, the director himself, Rob Cohen, says that's why he chose him as his first choice. He already knew the world of cars and had experience driving, so he fit perfectly with the story he wanted to tell. What I also find interesting is how the movie managed to portray this subculture, which had already existed for decades, especially in the United States and Japan. In case you didn't know, more or less. In the 70s and 80s, the first organized street races started appearing in Los Angeles, with young people modifying their cars to race. But it was in the 90s when this scene really exploded. At that time, the tuning, or the aesthetic and mechanical modification of cars, became a form of personal expression. People wanted to show who they were through their vehicles. The more unique, the better. That's why Japanese cars like the Nissan Skyline, Toyota Supra, Mitsubishi Eclipse, or Honda Civic started to appear, all customized with spoilers, neon lights, custom exhausts, and shiny paint. Exactly the same models that appear in the movie. All of that started to blend with the urban style of the United States. Hip-hop, baggy clothes, sneakers, chains, caps, and a very distinctive aesthetic. In essence, the 2000s. That's where Fast and Furious comes in, right when this movement was at its peak. To find all these vehicles and extras that appear in the movie, what they did was announce it online. The production started reaching out through online forums and tuning communities. At that time, the internet was already the meeting point for thousands of street racing fans, especially on the west coast of the United States. That's when rumors started circulating that a movie about that world was coming, and soon a casting call was spread. Anyone who had a modified car could show up with their vehicle to be part of the filming. And the response, as you can imagine, was huge. More than 1,500 people showed up with their own cars, mostly modified Japanese models. Honda, Nissan, Toyota, Mitsubishi, all with the look that defined the tuning movement at that time. Many of those cars ended up in the big scenes like the opening race or the nighttime gatherings where you could see endless rows of vehicles. And the best part was that their owners not only lent their cars but also participated as extras. They became part of the racers, the crowd, and the whole community that surrounded that world, so there was no need to invent anything nor to buy modified cars. All they had to do was put the camera in the right place. And to keep the budget low, when there were scenes where cars were destroyed, the crew set up as many as 10 cameras to film the same shot from different angles. In 2001, the movie was released and the impact was immediate. Plus, the profit margin, it's insane. The movie had a budget of only about $38 million, but ended up grossing over $200 million worldwide. The audience is captivated by the cast's chemistry, the adrenaline of the races, and Paul's charisma. At this stage, the guy gives several interviews, and in many of them, he speaks excitedly about his character. But when he talks about cars, he transforms. His eyes light up like a child's. He names engines, models, displacements. In fact, off-camera, Paul is a true enthusiast. He collects cars, modifies them, studies them, and even races them. He even founded his own workshop called Always Evolving and participates in competitions like the Red Line Time Attack. In fact, he likes cars so much that he co-founds AE, Always Evolving Performance, a workshop and automotive club dedicated to high-performance vehicles. Later on, this very project allows him to begin his journey as a driver. During these years, his career remains active and diverse. He returns to the world of street racing with the sequel to Fast and Furious, where it becomes even clearer that he is an essential part of the saga. He also explores other genres in his career. For example, in Timeline, he travels to the 14th century to rescue his father, who is trapped during an archaeological excavation. The story combines action, science fiction, and history, although unfortunately, it does not achieve the expected success at the box office. Later on, he acts in Noel, a Christmas drama. He also stars in Into the Blue, an underwater adventure where he plays a diver who, along with his partner, discovers the wreckage of a sunken plane with a cargo of substances inside. But this discovery quickly turns into a threat when they end up getting caught in a dangerous drug trafficking network. Dangerous. And although the film doesn't break box office records, it does allow him to work underwater in intense action scenes and to continue solidifying his profile as an adventure film actor. Let's remember that Paul had studied a career related to the marine world because he felt a special connection with the ocean. And this film, although not one of the most well-known, allows him to combine acting with one of his greatest passions. The guy is at his best as an actor, and it shows. He accepts role after role. In 8 Below, he plays an Antarctic guide who, after a storm, is forced to abandon his sled dogs. This film is powerful and is based on a true story. Here, the struggle of the animals to survive in extreme conditions is shown, while their owner does everything possible to return and rescue them. A story that moves the audience and reveals his most sensitive side. That same year, he stars in Running Scared, an intense and dark thriller where he plays a mobster who must recover a lost weapon. And then he appears in Flags of Our Fathers, a war film directed by Clint Eastwood, where he plays one of the soldiers who raised the flag at Iwo Jima. A scene that gave us this iconic photograph for the history of humanity. His role is brief, but the project adds to his prestige and confirms his ability to move between genres without losing his essence. As his acting career progresses, Paul uses his fame and resources to do great work. To support various ecological causes, especially those focused on ocean conservation. He actively participates in scientific diving projects and species monitoring and remains close to organizations dedicated to protecting marine life. He also collaborates with the Billfish Foundation, which focuses on the conservation of billfish such as marlin and swordfish. However, one of the most significant moments of his philanthropic life comes in January 2010, when the devastating earthquake in Haiti occurs. It was one of the most severe humanitarian tragedies of the decade. A magnitude 7 earthquake shook the country, leaving more than 200,000 dead, hundreds of thousands injured, and millions displaced. The infrastructure collapsed, hospitals were overwhelmed, and international aid was slow to arrive. This is how he founded Reach Out Worldwide, a non-profit organization focused on providing fast, rapid, and effective assistance to communities affected by natural disasters. The idea was born when Paul, after traveling to Haiti with a group of paramedics, firefighters, and doctors, saw firsthand how small, well-coordinated actions could make a huge difference in areas where large organizations had yet to arrive. Reach Out Worldwide is not just a symbolic foundation. Paul took part in the creation of the Foundation for the Science of Science. He actively participates in the missions, travels to disaster zones, carries supplies, talks with victims, and works side by side with rescuers. He doesn't seek publicity or recognition. Many of the missions go unnoticed by the media, and he often funds all of this with his own money, without seeking donations or running visible campaigns. And if all this awakens something in you, curiosity, because many remember him only for his movies and not for his more human side, there is an official website with all the information about his organization, the cases they've helped with, the volunteers involved, and the real impact they make. All of this is accompanied by a phrase that sums it up clearly. When goodwill is shown, it's amazing what can be achieved. While dedicating himself to film and his environmental activism, that same year he also launched himself as a race car driver. He competes with a BMW M3E92 in the Redline Time Attack series, where cars race against the clock to set the best time. He does it with his own team, AE Performance, and it's no small thing because his car is supported by well-known brands like Brembo, Owens, and Hancock. The guy keeps up an unstoppable pace, stringing together movies that challenge him in different ways. First, he stars in The Death and Life of Bobby C., where he plays a former Marine. To protect his family, he is forced to infiltrate the world of crime, posing as a well-known drug trafficker. Then he takes on Desperate Hours, a psychological thriller where his character wakes up alone in a hospital after Hurricane Katrina has passed. And he must do everything possible to keep his newborn daughter alive, as she depends on a machine to survive. A tense, intimate, and emotional story. And just when it seems like he has explored everything, he returns to the saga that catapulted him to fame. He returns to racing and that world of engines, where he is no longer the undercover cop he was in the first film. Now he is part of a family. He continues working on movies like Fast and Furious Out of Control, where the saga takes a turn. It stops being just a story about cars and transforms into one of action and heists, with a family of racers planning a big job in Rio de Janeiro. Then came Fast and Furious 6, with scenes in London, a global threat, and a more mature Brian. That same year he also starred in Vehicle 19, where he played a tourist who gets caught up in a conspiracy in Johannesburg. And also stories of a crime, a dark comedy with intertwined stories. A range of genres that demonstrates that, although many associate him with speed, Paul, he's always looking to try new things as an actor. Meanwhile, after having spent many years without living with his daughter, she moves in with him in California when she reaches adolescence. Bob then decides to dedicate himself to being the father he couldn't be before. He reaches his 40s with something many people seek, an apparent balance. After years of hard work, movies, auditions, and endless shoots, he has fame, money, a solid career, and above all, a family. He spends much of his time at sea, sailing, diving, exploring, because the ocean has always been his safe place. And in addition, his organization is active, growing, and helping. But sadly, everything changes on November 30th, 2013, when Paul attends a charity event organized by his own foundation. Out of all his vehicles, he decides to go in his friend Roger Rodas's Porsche Carrera GT with his friend at the wheel. They go to the event, everything is fine, but when they return just a few minutes after leaving, news arrives that changes everything. On the way, Paul and Roger lose control of the car and end up crashing into a light pole, where both lose their lives. The news shocks the world. Paul was a man who had learned to grow and help others, who found in philanthropy a way to use his fame for something greater than himself, who in his last years chose to be close to his daughter, the sea, and causes that truly mattered. The whole world mourns him. From movie fans to car enthusiasts, everyone finds their own way to pay tribute to him. Flowers pile up at the site of the accident, and social media fills with messages. His funeral is not held until December 14th due to the investigations trying to clarify what happened, but the pain is felt from the very first moment. Subsequent expert reports confirm that the car was going at about 150 kilometers per hour when it crashed. Then the fire consumed it. After his death, various theories began to circulate. Some people claimed that Paul was involved in filming a documentary about child trafficking together with Anne Hedge, or even that he planned to expose crimes linked to the Clinton Foundation in Haiti. It was even said that these investigations could have put him in danger, but none of these versions have solid evidence. After Paul's absence, his daughter moves back to live in the city of Haiti, to live with her mother. Meanwhile, his castmates, especially Vin Diesel, make sure to keep his memory alive. At every award, every event, and every interview after the accident, they find a way to remember him. After his passing, Furious 7 was released, where the team decided to finish the movie in a symbolic way. To achieve this, they used CGI and the help of Paul's brothers to complete the missing scenes. And the ending is unforgettable. Brian and Dom look at each other one last time from their cars, smile at each other, and then each takes a different road. The song See You Again plays in the background. And without saying it directly, it's clear that it's not just a farewell to the character, but a real and heartfelt goodbye to the person. Today, in 2025, Paul Walker's daughter has moved on with her life, and one of the most powerful ways she honors her father is through the Paul Walker Foundation, an organization that bears his name and continues the charitable legacy he began. She has become an activist, model, and spokesperson for social awareness, using her platform to speak about sustainability, mental health, and climate justice. She participates in global campaigns and United Nations events. Then here comes one of the things that struck me the most about this whole case. At Paul's daughter's wedding, it was Vin Diesel who walked her down the aisle, because even though Paul is no longer here, his family, both by blood and by choice, continues to find ways to keep his presence alive. And although this inevitably has a sad tone, it also shows how Paul is still present in every cause the foundation supports, in every engine that starts. And in every scene where his daughter smiles, she says in an interview, "The first thing you forget about someone is their voice." So I'm lucky to have his voice in so many movies to keep his spirit alive. And maybe that's the message to take away from the ending, from Paul's tragic death, that sometimes family isn't inherited but found. And that in a world that moves so fast where almost everything seems fleeting, true and authentic bonds, like the one Paul had with Vin Diesel, are proof that what really matters isn't seen at the box office or in awards. What truly matters is measured by the people who keep walking or driving with you, even when you're no longer here.